know. We miss each other. I was going to say, we're so happy to be here. We're happy to be anywhere, honestly. We're just like, we got ready today.
We got ready-ish today. Well, welcome to the Cultivate podcast. We are really happy just to have some girl time, to have some time with you guys.
Yes.
We've missed this so much. I was trying to think, like, we did the Cultivate Live, Instagram Live together. Mm-hmm. But before that, I'm like, when was our last podcast? I can't even remember.
Well, we did our live thing in January, the end.
And did we do a podcast in February?
No, we did. I think we recorded, we recorded a lot that night, and then we put up, like, maybe a bonus episode, I think, in February.
Yeah.
Tiff would know.
Tiff would know all the things.
Tiff would know. We're just up here trying to do the best we can, okay?
But we're just happy to be here, have a real conversation. Mel and I have been having some really real conversations on FaceTime this week.
It's rough out there.
Do you even know what week this is?
No. I asked Adam the date yesterday, but I forget what he told me.
Is it week 7, week 6?
It is week 7 of, like
stay at home?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. What have your days been looking like? Walk us through your quarantine day, Mel.
There's ups and downs. There's highs and lows. Work for me is still really busy. Moving a 12 campus multi-site church to an online church when I oversee the weekend is obviously hard. But I love what I do. I love my team. So there's been an energy in that for me, which has been really good. But honestly, I'll just to bear down to its finest component, me getting up before the rest of my family every day for me time, to work out, to read my Bible, if I don't do that.
Don't tell me you're like, I get up at 5 a.m.
No. My kids,
kind of person, because that might be a deal breaker.
No, my kids don't get up early. Okay, I don't have little kids, so when I say I get up before them, I'm waking them up at 10. Okay, so I'm not up at 5:30 or 6.
When everybody feels like a failure when they're like, well, at my 5 a.m. quiet time, every other woman in the world is like, me too, like.
Yeah, samesies. I just feel like when the sun's not up, I shouldn't be up either. Like, if the sun's onto it, maybe I should be onto the same
I like
trick.
to use the sun as my
Right. The sun is up now.
That's what I was trying to think, though, back to your point of, I was trying to think through if we ever announced to the women about your new role. I can't remember if we ever did.
What day is it? What do I do again? We don't know.
It's anybody's game, but this year has been so weird, as everybody knows. And early in January and in February, Melody made a big transition. I can't remember if we announced it or not, or if we were going to and then we couldn't get together. But tell everybody, just in case we didn't, or for anybody new watching, Melody was our director for Cultivate for the last a lot of years.
Many
years.
We just did it together.
But starting in 2020, you transition roles from Cultivate to a new role. So tell everybody about that, because it was like new role, new teams. Oh, and pandemic, I'm trying to now navigate 11 campus, switching that on to online, and you have been working like crazy. So tell everyone, just update the women on your life right now.
Thanks, Tim. So my new role is the executive director of story and experience. So that really just encompasses a lot of teams, but basically what we do creatively here for the weekend, the stories that we tell, video, graphic design, communications, worship and production. Those are the teams that I have the privilege of leading. And obviously this whole global pandemic, threw us into a brand new normal. So we're learning a lot, but I'm really, really proud of my teams. And this is a great time for me to give a shout out to those teams, because they're working really hard.
Yeah, they've worked so hard.
To make our weekend services excellent, and still getting to work with you, and still getting to do things like this together, because obviously Cultivate's a huge piece of my heart. So I love that we don't have to stop doing this, as both of our roles have increased, and we're doing all of the things together. So,
well, Yeah, like Mel said, like before this pandemic, we were both sort of, I mean, Cultivate is still my baby, and we were trying to figure out like what this is going to look like without you like running the day in and day out deals. But I also sort of took on a new role, and
Yeah, you
it's
did.
a little less defined, like special projects and branding for Sandals Church and such. But right, like day one of this happening, or actually, I think one of the things which I love about Dan Zimbardi and Matt is they could foresee that we were going to go in this direction.
Yeah.
And had this meeting, and then Dan was like, what if you like work with the team to figure out like what midweek could look like? And so I have spent the last 7 weeks working with our digital media team. That's such a different world from Cultivate. Cultivate's like all the women, and that team's like all the guys.
All the dudes. But you know what? You're running like a boss.
It has been so much fun to work with all the guys to come up with. So the guys and I just kind of figure out like how can we stay engaged and communicate well with our church through this time. What's interesting is when we first met together, we're like, hey, probably for the next 3 weeks, like let's plan on 3 weeks, treat it sort of like a mini sermon series online.
And
like
then-
we'll take this Thursday time slot, have Matt kind of update, like will we get to meet this weekend? Like we thought it would be a couple week project, and now we're 7 weeks in. But like you, our digital media team
Incredible.
has been so incredible. And this is like no shameless plug for them. It's my honest heart to just watch how they worked. Their hours have been weird. There's been like challenges of, a lot of people have written in like, where did the button go to like I accepted Jesus. Well, those first few weeks, like that crashed our site, so they've had to figure out how to like figure
It's been a deal,
all
guys.
of that kind of stuff, which you know me, like I still can hardly get into a Zoom meeting without someone texting me the
Same.
code to just click
Same.
on. These guys are incredible at what they make happen
Yeah.
every week, and have actually been able to consult other churches on how to do it. And really the fact that they were already in the know of all of this because of the way we stream our multi-site situation. We made such a seamless transition during this time to online, and still being able to connect with our people while we can't gather together.
Which are literally all over the world. That's what's it's incredible. As you are overseeing the teams that run everything that's happening during the week, and I'm doing that on the weekend, when you actually kind of step outside of the work and look at the thousands of people from literally around the world, like we have a hub in Australia that are tuning into Sandals Church. It kind of like, gives me a little nervous diarrhea, but also,
I knew she was going to work that in.
But also, it's just incredible how in a season like this that's so crazy and chaotic, God is still using the church and using Sandals Church to get the gospel out to children, all the way up to senior citizens, and that we get to be a part of it. I'm just so grateful and so humbled and so busy.
And there's been, we have had to be creative and innovative, as you have also.
Yeah.
This week is the first week really that a couple teams have come on campus. We've had to figure out a plan and a schedule to make sure that we're keeping our people safe.
Right.
For me, with our teams filming, it's not been just about like making sure we look like we're doing it right. I don't want anyone on our team sick.
Totally.
I don't want our families of our staff sick for the purpose of content.
Yep.
And so we've been figuring out how to distance from one another.
I'm leg hugging everybody when this is over. I don't even know if I know you. I don't even care. I'm leg hugging you. Get ready.
We're going to get to that a little bit later about how unexpectedly I'm loving this time.
Tammy's never coming out of quarantine, you guys. Get a good look. Get a good look, because we just don't know when we're going to see her again.
I did not know that I was going to love it. But anyhow, we let a couple teams, but our kids team and our youth team, figuring out how to stay connected and engaged from their home office on their iPhones.
It's amazing.
People have been so innovative. I think for a couple weeks, Matt was the only one coming on with one or two of our production team. You are a rock star, but at the beginning of all this, Mel said, let's capture 3 or 4 worship sets so that we just have them ready. So people are asking us, like, how's your team going in? It's like, you captured that week 1 before the lockdown. Before the safer at home, which I do agree with that, was such a thing. So that was so genius. But
it's funny, when we aired one, it was like it had gotten up to like 90 degrees, but we'd shot it like weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, those beanies, we're giving it away. It's not live because it's 95.
What's funny is I never even thought of that.
You know me, it's
I
like
haven't noticed that at all. Even last week I texted you, I was like, did you guys film this week? Because it was so good and the songs were so timely for that week that I thought you had done it that week, and it was just...
God's in the details.
Which is how God, so in the details. So, okay, let's move to a little bit of real conversation that we're having a lot, that I'm having with a lot of friends a lot, about just sort of being a woman at this time. Sorry for the digital media team that's actually filming us right now to have to overhear this, but like...
No, this is good for them. Most of them are single. Pay attention.
I said, no one knows what day it is of the month, and no one knows what day it is of the week, or like the actual date. But women are starting to be like, we're 2 periods in.
Yep.
2.5 periods. If I have to go through another period. Such a real thing.
CVS was out of toilet paper and out of feminine products because we started thinking ahead. How long might we be at home, okay? It's a real thing.
My poor husband, like with 3 women in the house during quarantine.
Oh.
Whew, he's like, can we get out of this before the next round hits? Honest to God. But as women, like, what do you feel like for you just as a woman? We're going to talk about as a mom, as a wife, and as like working during this, but just as a woman, like what are some of the things that you found to be most challenging?
I think I posted about this. It's been a real introspective season as I'm learning about me and as I'm learning about God. And so, it's really a game of emotions. And it's a roller coaster. And if you don't like roller coasters, then I'm sure you're hating this even more, because some days it feels like this is good and beautiful and I'm savoring and I'm gonna be so grateful. I've got a 16-and-a-half-year-old, almost 14, just turned 13. That's my kids. So I'll savor and I'm feeling that warmth, emotion. And then the very next day, sometimes the very next hour, I'm angry at everyone. I'm super irritated. I'm over it. I'm frustrated. And it's almost like that felt like schizophrenic to me. Like I was just like warm and then now I'm like, get away. So it's just really this thing. And so just a few days ago in our community group, my husband said this and it was so good, and I've like shared it with so many people. He said we should always feel our emotions, but we don't have to follow them. And I was like, you know what? Mic drop. Adam in quarantine. God's given him the wisdom. Like I can feel all of those things. I can feel warmth and savoring and just like treasuring. And then I can feel agitated and irritated, but I don't have to follow those negative emotions and where they're going to take me. And so it's really been about self-discipline with my mind, as well as other things with my body, but disciplining my mind. I don't have to follow everything that I feel. I don't have to chase that I can feel it and know that it's real and validate it and move on past it. And that can be a moment by moment thing for me.
I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, which is like the thinking in the head triad. And so I think like personally for me, that has been one of the things, is like trying to figure out how I feel.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a thinker and all in that regard. So I wake up and I'm in a funk and I don't know what it is. I can't put words to it, but I know I'm in a funk.
Yeah.
And so trying to even connect with how I feel, I think has been challenging to me. You and I have talked about this, but Matt and I have like completely switched roles during this time, which has been really, really interesting. He's such a feeler. And he's feeling the weight of all of this. He's feeling the fear of all of this.
Yeah. Yep.
And because I think that's been an interesting thing for me, is just not being so in touch with how I feel, but having to also, like, I'm thinking through what does my family need?
Yeah.
Literally, like food-wise, preparedness-wise, that kind of stuff. That has actually kept me pretty calm and focused.
Yeah.
I'm typically very social, which you and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. I'm a very social person. Matt and I are very social by nature and also by the nature of what we do for a living. You know, in ministry, it's not a job, it's a life. And so before all of this, we maybe eat home twice a week.
Yeah.
We eat out. We're committed to people and obligations and fun things and all the things. And we're with people constantly. And so one of the things I'm processing through this is being alone with myself a lot.
Yeah.
And I like what's coming up with that.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, of like, you can ignore a lot of things that you're feeling or thinking or experiencing or processing when you're busy. And now I'm not so busy. And so I'm like trying to figure out like, oh, that's coming to the surface.
Yep.
What is that about? Or, oh, I always said I don't have time to do this, and now I have time, I'm still not doing that. Like I said, oh, I would read more. Now I have all this time to read, and I'm not reading. I actually, 2 weeks ago, that's what I wrestled with is, I always give myself like, oh man, I would study more or read more or develop, you know, ideas more if I had time, and now I have time. So 2 weeks ago, I decided that I was going to finish my half-read books. So I finished 2. I'm reading a book with someone else, and then I started the book that you're reading because it kept coming up. And I actually, that book, I can't get past, I keep rereading Genesis and Exodus. We're reading, what is it called? 66 Love Letters.
Love Letters.
By Larry Crabb. I just keep reading the Genesis and Exodus segment over and over and chewing on it. Like I can't move on.
Yeah.
So I'm a week and a half in, and I just reread those and process. Reread them and process. So I've like given myself permission in that one book to
take your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not try to be like, I'm going to do a chapter a day and then I'll be done in six days.
Right.
You know, like
No.
that's how I get in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's been interesting. One of the things I think I've been reminded of through this time is that I have more of a creative, artistic, like maker side of me that has been pretty dormant for a long time. I like to make
Samesies, except not. I'm not creative. I'm still not crafty. Nothing about this pandemic has opened my eyes to the
Melody
fact that-
texts me, Addie wishes you were her mom.
They're doing tie-dye. Eddie's like, that's my dream. I'm like, you know what? Get smaller dreams.
Smaller dreams. But that's one of the things I'm like, man, I do love to make things, hand make things. And I've been trying to sort of tap into that part of me again, personally. I told Matt, like, I feel the most alive when I'm making something. It's a weird thing I don't necessarily...
Yeah, it's weird.
And I haven't done it for a really long time, but
you're killing it.
tie-dyeing, and I started sewing masks, which
beasts.
I don't necessarily love sewing, but I do love making things.
Yeah.
And it brings me a lot of joy. So after this, I'm trying to figure that out. So a reminder to you guys too, if you're watching us right now, is if any of the things we're talking about spurs something in you, like write it in and we'll answer it. So we have a couple right now. Can you read that one, Mel? Because I
Yeah, it
can't
says,
see
what
all.
disciplines have you discovered during the quarantine that you want to keep as a part of your life going forward?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. I would, for me, it's what I referenced earlier. You know, when I'm taking kids to school, I'm getting up in time to take them to school, and then, you know, I'm about my day. But now with this, one of the blessings is they're not getting up so early, and because my kids are older, they don't get up early. Thank God. All you young moms, all the prayers, literally. So me getting up before everybody, and I work out, I read my Bible, I pray. I'm praying more specifically these days. Prayer to me is something I've been meditating on a lot. I think it's a lost discipline in the life of most Christians, and I'm including myself in that in terms of a deep, authentic prayer life. So I'm reaching out to people and I'm saying, how can I pray for you specifically? And so I've gone deeper
Hey,
in
you
that.
haven't reached out to me and asked that.
I already know how I can pray for you specifically. I don't have to ask. It just comes up in our conversation. So people on my teams have reached out and said, you know, like, my husband lost his job, or I have a special needs child who now I'm trying to homeschool. Like, those are real things.
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So I'm like really being able to be intentional about praying for them and then check in with them. And that's something that I definitely want to keep as a part of my routine going forward.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm embarrassed to say it, but exercise. I make all the excuses in the world to not exercise.
Because you're thin and you don't try.
But I'm smaller, but not strong, and that matters to me.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll just make whatever excuse. Like, I won't work out with Matt because he's so much more fit than me. And, like, one day he's like, come on the run with me. Like, where we live, there's a 3-mile little walking track around it. And I was like, okay. And I was able to run the whole thing. Now, I'm not fast, but I was able to do it. And I was like, huh. Then a few days later, he asked again. And I was like, okay. And so then I've just started trying to make it more of a rhythm where if I don't exercise one day, I make sure I'm walking or doing something active.
Yep.
Because that's been really, really good for me. But now we're starting week 7 or whatever of this. I don't know, 2.5 times.
2.5 periods in. Go ahead, keep going.
And I noticed some really differences in me. Like I started, and when we finished that 3 miles, I was like dead and sore. Now I've worked up to 5 miles, and I'm almost back at my time from when I was running regularly.
So great.
You know, on my bike, I have a Peloton. Like I used to do the 20-minute beginner class and be like, yeah, I did. You know, now I'm doing the 35, 45-minute class plus, you know, 10, 15 minutes of arms plus, you know, now I don't know that I'll still have that space, but, you know, you make time for what you want to make time for.
Yep. We figure out what we care about.
Right. And so I think that that's important. I mean, I hate saying this, but like I am getting older. And
we are.
That's what's funny is a week before the stay-at-home order was my birthday.
Yep. My
46th birthday, and we had a little. You and the girls like planned a little surprise-ish get-together thing for me. And what's funny is like I was like, oh, I don't want to do anything for my birthday. Now I'm like, remember when we were all together on my birthday? Like I was so grateful for it but I did for a hot second. The next week and a half, once this all came out, was like, I hope none of us had it and gave it to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that did go through my sixth mind on this. So that's a great question, but yeah, I think that's exercising is a thing I need to make time for. Also cooking at home. I've made that a real priority for we have to, right?
Right.
We have to make it a priority. So I think that, and then also making sure I'm making time for creative things.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's it. We have another good question.
It says, I want to have compassion and sit with people in their heartaches who've been hit hard by COVID, but I also want life to start again. How are you girls navigating similar feelings? That's a great question.
That's a really great question.
I think I think we talked about this earlier. There's a real tension to manage right now, in that, you know, especially for people like you and I who, you know, we're connected to a lot of people. And so this whole pandemic is affecting people that we love in completely different ways. So I've had DMs from friends who are immunocompromised. And so they're begging people to stay at home and staying home themselves, and because they want to be well, they want to be there for their kids. I have really good friends who their businesses are suffering because of this, and they're not sick, and they want to go back to work because they want to be able to provide for their families and their employees. I love both of those people dearly. They're both my friends, and this has completely changed their perspective on so many things. So I think for me, I have to really guard what I say and where I say it, because I don't want to estrange any of my friends, because my experience in this is completely different from both of theirs. And there's days where I may feel way more, on this side of things, or where I feel on this side of things. So the first thing I would say is be really wise and careful with what you say and where you say it. Social media is not the place to vent your impatience. It just doesn't feel wise to me. There's someone on the other side of the screen whose life experience is vastly different from yours. There's someone on the other side of the screen who's been hit by this in a way you haven't. And so your situation matters to you. Find a trusted friend. We vented to each other about things, but those are things I would never put on blast because it's just not the right place.
Everyone's like, what have you been venting?
We have real struggles too. And so I'm saying to you, this has been hard for me, or
Yeah.
you're saying this has been hard for me. So I would just say be wise, and I would say it's really not a problem to solve as much as it's a tension to manage.
Oh, that's good.
And 2 years ago, we really talked about being kind and being wise. Matt said this weekend in his message, just because you're intelligent doesn't mean you're wise. And so I would venture into every single one of those scenarios with wisdom. I can say to my immunocompromised friend, I can imagine that this is so scary for you. I'm so glad that you're safe at home. How can I pray for you? And I can say to my friend whose business is suffering, I'm sure this is so hard for you and for your families and your employees, and I love you, and I'm praying for you to have wisdom, and that life can resume to some sort of normalcy, so that you don't lose everything, so that your families don't. And love both of them well.
And both of them are valid. And I think
Right.
that's what Matt and I, we're fielding a lot of questions like this every single day, and none of us have the right answer.
There's not a solution.
None of us have all the right information.
Right.
Because it is very different. Those both are very, very real scenarios. We're thinking about that every day. Of
Totally.
how do we navigate everything with the church and the campuses and staff and keeping everyone safe, but also thinking about the future of our church.
Right.
And wanting, for me, like, my mom is super compromised. She almost died in November, has had a transplant.
Yeah.
We just recently saw her for the first time, and we actually hadn't seen her for a few weeks prior to all of this. Because someone was sick at the house.
Yep.
And so we were going on like 9 or 10 weeks of not seeing her. We waited until everyone, they're not leaving. Her life hasn't changed.
Yeah.
She has to basically live like this now anyways.
Right.
But we were making sure we are. And that's the question that I keep getting is, what do I say to my in-laws or our friends or people that are like, we're all fine, and the truth is, people are getting quarantine fatigue at this point. Week 7, people are like, this is ridiculous. I want out. I want to see people. And people are asking us about the girls and their boyfriends. And you know what? The choices that Matt and I are making are the choices we're making with the information we have about, I know my mom hasn't seen anybody.
Right.
We've been so quarantined, but everybody needs to make the best choices with the information they have.
Right.
What we're doing isn't right for what you're doing.
Right.
And what you're doing is not right for what other people are doing. And so I think that those, all of us need to have an exuberant amount of grace right now for other people's choices, other people's boundaries. I've had people say, like, my in-laws think it's ridiculous that we don't want to see them. So did ours. Matt's parents had a really hard time with it, but we don't want to get them sick.
Right.
And also, they're interacting with some people early on that we were like, well, if you're going to go out, we don't want to get sick, so we had to manage that tension. It wasn't that they were doing everything wrong, we were doing it right, or vice versa. It's that, we have to all make the best decisions in a scary, unprecedented, weird time that we can. And so everybody needs to have grace. Like, if I'm ready to see my mom and she's not ready, that's on me to have that grace. And vice versa. You know, if we're like, Mom, I love you, I don't want that on my shoulders. You know, that's one of the things that was super hard when we thought Kennedy was sick, is we had seen somebody through a weird dynamic that happened. Kennedy spent like the first 3 days that when she was so ill, she said the worst part was in her mind
that she might have made
hoping
someone else
to
sick.
God that she didn't make someone else sick.
Yeah.
She even uttered to Matt and I almost wish I had a cancer or something that I couldn't give to anybody else, because bearing the weight of thinking that I infected other people, that could, because the people that she had saw are, you know, a little more at risk. They're older than her. She's 22 years old. She might get really sick, but she probably would have come through.
Yep.
But other people, she said that weight was worse than how she felt. It was unbearable. And so we all have to have that grace for each other. And if you're someone who's getting on someone because they won't see you, you need to calm down about that.
Yep.
And let them do what feels right and safe for them.
Exactly.
And vice versa. So that's my answer to that.
And I would say one more thing to that. It's highly, highly doubtful that a social media rant is going to change someone's mind.
Here's the mind it will change, though. It's going to change their mind about you.
Yeah.
Not about the topic.
Right.
Because I know that's true for me.
Totally.
I have seen people on social media during this time where I'm like, I had a lot of respect for you.
Well, and here...
And I don't even hear what they say. It's just like, is that the time? Is that the place?
Right.
Is that wise? Even if I agree with some of it, the delivery, I'm like...
And here's the thing that we should struggle with as believers, as we have a platform on social media, is on the day where we're ranting or we're blasting or we're going, here's what I think about this, and it's highly offensive or completely opposite to someone else's opinion or perspective that's also valid. And then in the next post, you're like, hey, come with me to Sandals Church this weekend, watch online. That person's like, I don't want to go to your church. I don't want to hear about, like, and then we'll go, and then we'll post a verse. God is my refuge and my strength. Really? Because I want to circle back.
Be kind, cultivate women. Your last post was just like,
So all we're saying is we get it. We get it. There's days I'm like, this feels ridiculous. I have that battle, and the
struggle's real.
Yeah, and the struggle is to find wisdom. That doesn't mean you can't share, but where and how and what you say matters. How has this pandemic affected your marriage?
I'm putting my computer away. We don't even need it.
With all this time
These
together,
questions are so good.
Is it terrible to question whether you married the right person?
So a few minutes ago, Melody and I said we've had a lot of real talk together.
We're going to preface all this by saying we are so in love.
With who? And 100% stand by the choice of who we married.
You guys celebrated 23 years in March?
4 years.
Okay, we're 20 in June.
Yeah.
So we've been at this a really long time, but never before in a pandemic, okay?
Here's the thing. Anybody together 24/7 all the time is not a good mix.
It's a lot.
Like, it adds a pressure. So here's my funny answer and my serious answer are going to vary. You know, the funny answer is Melody and I both were like, we can't be the only like outlet, playmate, sounding board, like, to our spouses has been a lot.
It's been a lot.
You know, Matt is super social. He's super extroverted, way more than me. And so to have nobody else to like share that with has been a lot.
Adam is not extroverted.
And I adore him and I love him. I think he's funny. I think he's so smart, so intelligent. But like being the only source of someone's like everything is a lot sometimes. But here's the truth. Now's not the time to make any of those kind of decisions or question that at all.
Right.
And for believers,
you're in.
You know, so we have said though that, and I'll refer to back what I said personally earlier, is that I'm having things rise to the surface within me that I have been able to ignore when I'm very, very, very busy. And I think that's true for marriage. Some things you can ignore when you're both going in two different directions and
Yep.
you're working and you're rushed and you're focused on kids, and you can ignore some things that probably need some attention.
Yep.
And this is giving us time for those things to surface and get some attention. That doesn't mean they're bad. It means it's something to work through.
Right.
At 24 years of marriage, I can honestly say, Matt and I have had a lot of marriage struggles. We've had to work through a lot of things, and doing that hard work has landed us what I call on the other side.
Yeah.
On the other side, where we trust each other, we love each other, we understand each other. Now, is there stir tension? Absolutely. Just this week, since this is a real talk, Matt and I took a walk, and he was like, "What's your deal?" And I just said,
Let me introduce you to Tammy Brown, okay? You know that hard conversation, you're like skipping around? She plows right through it. You open the door, she's like, I've been waiting for
well,
this
I
invitation.
have tried really hard to not add a stress to Matt. He's
Yeah.
carrying the weight of our church. He's carrying the weight of, managing a couple other things. Like, he's carrying a lot.
And delivering. I'm in the room every Thursday when he records his message, and his messages for this season, for this time, in a completely empty, it's really brilliant. God has gifted him, and he has not stopped bringing his A game
Right.
every weekend to our church and to the
Right.
world, and I'm so
Absolutely.
grateful.
And so I'm like, does this need to be about me right now? Does it need to be about, like, hey, like, no.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I
Wise.
think that's balancing wisdom. It's also choosing to try to be maturity and choosing love for him.
Yes.
Now the flip side is there are things where I'm like, I wish you didn't say it like that. I wish, like I need some space. He needs some space. Like, that kind of thing. So you don't want to make those decisions, but working through the hard things has developed in us a relationship I wouldn't change for anything in the world.
Yep.
But there are days where I'm like, I need you to just go outside. I'm going to go outside. And I'm sure he's felt that way too when I say something. But we went on a walk, and he's like, what's your deal? And I'm like, we're 6 weeks in now. You've been processing. And here's the thing to remember. We're all processing in a certain way.
Right.
We just tend to be unaware of our own processing and how other people are receiving it. We're just hyper aware of how we're receiving everybody else. But I'm seeing in Matt something I've never seen before in him. He's been more verbal. He's been focused on some fear. He's been, just constantly talking about the pandemic and what they're learning. And he's a verbal processor. I'm an internal processor. When he's stressed, he uses more words. I use less. You can see how that dynamic creates
Totally.
a tension.
Yep.
Is that how Matt all the time? Absolutely not. Me going so introverted has made him feel certain ways.
Yep.
Like I don't care about him, like I'm not listening to him, like I'm not. So the way I'm processing is also, it's not better or right, it's just different.
Yep.
And so I think that's such a great question. I don't think you should be questioning whether you married the right person. I understand it. But I think what I want to encourage you to do is to just think about what you love about the other person,
Yeah.
not be hyper fixated on how they're being during this time. This
Yeah.
is a weird time where no one knows how to handle it right. People are going to act and behave in weird ways.
Yep.
That's not normally how they are. And instead be a good question asker. Like when your spouse is, like with Matt, when he's being super talkative or fixated on something, I'm starting to try to say, like, how is that making you feel?
Yeah.
Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling stressed? Try to get past what's on the surface to get underneath a little bit
Yeah.
more. Matt's carrying the stress of our family finances, our church finances, our church people. We're on the front lines of hearing who has COVID in our church, who has COVID on our staff,
Yep.
who's died that's not having COVID but can't have a funeral now, and it's having to minister.
Right.
There are so many dynamics right now that your spouse is probably stressed about their job,
Yep.
the future, the kids, all of these other things you
Yeah.
know, that have nothing to do with you, but you're going to get them because you're the two people together the most.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to tell myself about Matt is like, okay, so he's talking a lot about what's happening, which does trigger in me my fear. You know, so I'm like, I need us to not be talking about COVID 24/7,
Right.
because I'm prone to fear as it is.
Well, and I've shared with you too that
Yeah.
Matt and I have similar enneagrams.
Yeah.
That-
You speak to that.
Yeah. So as a high 8, 3 is my second highest. I think Matt's a 3/8.
Yeah.
Our issues are with control, and this whole thing feels out of control.
Oh yeah.
So I have gone through, when I just talked about my emotions, when I'm really tanking, it's me trying to get out in front of the what ifs so that I can feel like I'm going to be in control of that. That's exhausting and
And it's exhausting to the people around you.
yes. So I'm trying to here's this. Well, this is what can happen. Well, if this happens, what would I do? Well, here's what I would try. And I'm doing this, and that's that. It's a really ridiculous and completely futile attempt to try to control what I might feel in this hypothetical situation. It is absolutely ridiculous, but it's how a 3/8 8/3 deals with anxiety. So it's and one of the best things I read in my time with Jesus a few weeks ago was resign yourself and your family to me. Like resign. You think about resigning like I'm done. Just in God saying resign it to me. And so that's been a moment by moment, day by day thing for me. But to go back to something that you were saying, and you said ministry is not a job, it's a life. And I'm going to tuck that away because that's really, really good. And in all of our years of ministry, we've seen a lot of marriages, a lot of weddings, and then a lot of divorces. And here's one thing that I've seen in marriages that could be the culprit of so many separations and divorces, because life is so busy and our stress makes us feel significant. So we get busier on purpose. We have our kids in all the things. We're in all the things. We're never home. We're never home. Isn't a haven. Home is a rest stop while we're doing all the things. And people adopt this marriage that looks like parallel universe existence.
Yeah.
He's on his track, you're on your track, and here you go. And you're doing the thing with the kids, and he's doing his thing with the truck or with the with the club or whatever. And you're stopping every now and then to talk about what can I spend or what's in the bank account or where are we going or did you sign it? But you're back to your parallel universe existence, and now everything within your parallel universes has shut down.
Yep.
So you're having to intersect way more than you've had to before. So the issue might not be the person. The issue might be the parallel universe existence that you've built. And now is the time for you to re-examine your priorities. Do our kids need to be in 17 extracurricular activities?
Girl.
Do we need to be out all the time? Why don't we like being at home? Why does being at home feel strange and foreign to me?
Right.
And we are not talking about domestic abuse or anything like that. We're talking about just like you're different, I'm different, and so I'm out and you're out.
And what you might be experiencing is how much you've grown apart from being in a scenario like that.
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden you're together and you're questioning. It's because how have you been sowing that relationship, that togetherness? And obviously we don't know all those dynamics of this situation, but we know that dynamic in general.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, Matt is your person.
Yeah.
In the good and the bad and the ugly. He was your person before the pandemic. He's your person now. Same with Adam. He was my person before. But for some of you, if your person was your girlfriend or your mom or your sister or whatever, and now you don't see them, you're feeling really detached. It could be God moving you to reconsider who your person is and how you go about restructuring so that it's
and
your
I think
spouse.
that's so good, because what I would say is my heart for you, whoever this question is from, is what an opportunity this is to rekindle your marriage, to rekindle your relationship, to rekindle your priorities together.
Because you're home, so guess what you can do.
Even Matt and I have had to do that.
Yeah.
Even Matt and I, we're very, very busy, but we're busy together. But so how do we connect when we're alone together, not busy.
Right.
You know, what do we talk about when we're not talking about the next thing we have to be at or do or a church or,
Yes.
you know, we're trying to figure out how to reconnect in that way about just us, you know, with our adult kids even. You know, it's one thing to see them periodically. It's another we're together 24/7. And in our home, that has been a balance. We've had some really bad days. We've had some bad blow-ups where Matt and I have said things and we were ridiculous and wrong. And we've had to go to our adult children and be like, I'm so sorry I said that. I'm so sorry I acted like that. I'm so sorry I did that. And vice versa. You know, we're all doing the best we can in this time and growing. You know, we had one of the kids, a blow-up had happened because of the way that they had approached us, and they ended up saying, like, I'm scared to approach you guys. And that was big for me. And Matt and I had to circle back and say, we've spent our entire life trying to create a culture for our kids to be real with us, and one of them doesn't feel like they can be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And we're having to refocus about how approachable are we? Are we just like talking over? We're going to talk over and louder and bigger because we're in charge. Well, they're growing up now.
Yeah.
You know, who do we want to be in them? All that to say, all of us are shifting in this time.
Yep.
And it's been hard because there's an underlying fear. There's an underlying reality. This is a real deal. Like, you know, there's people that think this virus is nothing. Well, you know, it might, let's hope it's not, but it is for a lot of people.
Right.
And so none of us know how to manage this. There are days when all of our worst selves are coming out.
Totally.
You know, the bad days are when all of us have all of our worst self coming out.
And it's probably a great season to enact something that a spiritual mentor taught me years ago, which was keep short accounts in your marriage.
Oh,
we're
Lord.
really good at stockpiling offenses and tucking them away. You make me mad, I just walk away from you and I tuck that away. I'm not forgetting. What we've been doing a lot lately is, you just snapped at me, I'm really sorry. Or why did you just take that tone with me? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken. And doing it then. In pre-pandemic, why did you snap at me? Whatever, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Where are we going? So I'd rather not drip my upper lip in sweat at Target than just make it right with my husband because I'm wearing that mask. I'd rather just, you know, I'm sorry.
Right.
So short accounts. Don't harbor offenses. You've got nowhere to go. And honestly, I keep going back to this. This is going to sound so trite, and yet it's the foundation of what we believe. Aren't we all trying to become more like Jesus?
Right. And this right here, this is going to test us.
This is going to, listen, it's either bringing out the Jesus or the devil in all of us. And some days I'm more like
some
Jesus.
days
and some days
simultaneously.
right? There's a war. It's a real thing. But if I in my mind can go, I do want to become more like Jesus, and in this moment he would forgive. And in this moment he would give grace. In this moment he would show compassion, you know? That's kind of, and that's with your marriage, it's with your kids, with your in-laws, it's with people that you work with, it's
your neighbors,
everybody.
your friends.
Yeah.
Here's another question, you guys. It says, I'm getting numb to all the bad news I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to be numb and escape what is truly happening, but how do we carry it all and sit in it without being totally depressed? I think that sums up the question that most of us are feeling right now. That's such a great question. I think especially on week 7 of this, we're all getting a little bit numb. And even driving in today, I'm driving in Matt's car, and he has his like talk radio on, so I'm like listening to like all of the COVID, all of that kind of stuff. And this is actually exactly the question is, like, I feel like I'm getting numb where I'm like, I'm just going to go out now. I'm just going to go do this now. Like, this is ridiculous now. And they phrased it quarantine fatigue. Like, it's getting warm now. People are feeling like it's a new season. It's spring, so they're ignoring it. And I myself am wondering, what is the right boundaries?
Right.
Like,
does heat kill the virus? We don't know.
Yeah, you know. And so I had to challenge myself too to think about, you know, being careful not to get too relaxed, because we thought we had it in our house for a week, and that was
So scary.
so scary, so heavy, so hard. And I already am like forgetting that feeling,
Yeah.
you know, of what that was like. So I still want to take this seriously, but also I want to not make this the end all thing that's consuming my thoughts as well.
Right.
You know, Matt and I this last week, on our Real Talk segment that we're trying to do, you know, that's what we did is we're like, we can't just think about COVID anymore. There's so much good happening out there.
Yeah, it was
and
awesome.
so I think that would be part of my answer, and you can answer that in a second too, of just like, you know, I think none of us can just drop and dismiss COVID at this point.
Mhm.
It's a virus that's so unknown, it's unpredictable, that, you know, there isn't a vaccine just yet. It does affect different people differently, so they'll be like, here's how it works, and then it goes, and like, you know, like,
Right.
and so it's too soon to do that, because how it affects you is not how it affects someone else. And so if you're like, but I'm fine, but now you've, you know, infected someone else because you're choosing to ignore, all that to say, it's too soon to completely forget about it.
Yeah.
But also we need to remember all of the other parts of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have seen more good between people in the last 7 weeks than I've seen in years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen people be loving, be kind, but here's what I've also seen, even that dropping off a little.
Yeah.
Like it was a novelty at first to be
Yeah.
kind to people. Now it's like, well, I've
Okay.
already done it. You know,
Okay.
I already sent you or whatever. But let us not do that either. You know, like what I would encourage you to do is, my best times during this time have been when I've been making things for other people or reaching out to other people and not being about myself.
Yeah.
When I get all in my head and about myself, that's where I tank.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage everybody at this time, and I tried to encourage our staff to this last week of, it's really fun and it's really easy to be like, oh, Melody, like, you're my best friend, I'm going to drive you a mask and leave stuff on your porch, and, you know, and it occurred to me how many people are watching this online happening,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like opening their door and like, yeah, nothing again today, no card in the mail today, no special drop off or shout out on Instagram today. And so here's my heart for the people of our church, the women of our church, myself. This last week I've tried to think of who are the people that are, being real, a little more difficult, a little harder to love, not as fun to love, not as cool to love. Who are those people, and how can I love on them during this time? So, because they matter to God, they matter to our church, they need to matter to me.
Yeah.
And so I would say a way to not sit and carry all the bad is to do good.
Mm-hmm.
That's my answer to
Yeah.
this. Like, who can you be kindness to? Who can you be kindness to in your neighborhood? Who are those people that were on your heart week 1 and week 7? You're like, yeah, whatever. It's every man for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, I've seen the best of humanity in the last 7 weeks with the kindness, the generosity, the care. You know, Christina was talking to me. We were talking about, like, we typically walk our neighborhoods, and you just walk right by your neighbors, and we never talk.
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, you guys doing okay? We're,
Right.
you know, there has been such beauty developed during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple of things that going back to what I've learned about myself through this that deals directly with this question, is there's a really false, there's a false narrative that goes more knowledge equals more peace. It's not true. We think that the more we know or the more we figure out about COVID-19, the more peace we're going to have about all of our anxieties. That's a myth. So we could never know enough to have peace, because there's way more that we don't know about life that we will never satisfy that amount of that knowledge tank. So if you're pursuing that, the more I know, then the more I'll be at peace. I'm gonna challenge you right now.
It's the thing. It's like
put
with
that to
anything,
death.
though. Yeah, I've like,
Yeah.
the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Right. And then you're like, the more I don't know, the less peace I have. So I
Right.
need to know more. So you live in this cycle. So that's my first thing. That's not true. So move away from that. I also don't think you bury your head in the sand, but I would say this. You need to set boundaries with the information that you take in because you can only absorb so much of it. And I would also say that no one news source is giving you the unbiased, 100% truth. I don't care if you love Trump or if you hate him or you love Gavin Newsom. It doesn't matter. No one's giving you the just, hey, here's just the news. That just doesn't exist.
All of the news has an agenda. They have a person. They have a platform.
Yep.
They have a preference on who they want in office and what story they want shared.
Yep, and this doctor's had this experience and made this YouTube video, but this doctor had this experience.
Right.
You can't find that unfiltered source of truth, except that you can, and it's God's word.
Right.
COVID-19 took everybody surprised except for God. He was the only one who was like, guys, he is the source of all knowledge. He is the source of all peace. So for me personally, I will read a few articles. I may catch a few minutes of a press briefing here or there, but it's minimal. And I'm doing this. This is the honest to God truth. I'm taking that in, and then I'm processing for as much as I can. I'm setting that aside, and then I'm trying to be cautious and wise with when I go out and what I do and what I tell my family. I'm trying to take the best care of myself that I can, and I'm trying to stay really connected to the source of all truth, which is God. And that's not a formula to never feeling anxiety. In this world, we will have trouble, but take heart. God says, I've overcome the world. So we have to remain connected to that source of truth rather than putting a lot of hope and a lot of, crossing our fingers that all of this information that we're absorbing is going to give us peace. It may give us a false sense of peace, but at the end of the day, God's the only one who's supreme on the throne, in control over all of this, not taken aback, not like scrambling to find a he's stable and sturdy and good. And so I want to be attached to that because I can flounder and spiral so fast. And those things, those news articles, those breaking news, those all of those, that never ever brings me more peace. It only brings me more anxiety.
I typically, like a normal pre all of this day for me is that I'll like get up and throw the Today Show on. Like I don't do any of that anymore. I'm like you. I will read a couple things maybe. I'm finding myself scrolling past or unfollowing news sites that I typically follow on social media. And then in our family, we've had conversations where different people at different times have said, can we not mention COVID today or at dinner tonight or at, like setting those times of like not having that conversation. Not letting it be a part of it. So let's take one more question. We had so many questions, like we prepped and conversations to have, but your guys' questions were
so
right
good.
on the money and they're more important to us. So, okay, let's do this one before we wrap up. What do you think will look different but better when this is all over? Here's what
not my skin, that's for sure.
My skin is going to look better because I've been like crazy about my skin regimen.
I haven't. I'm trying to get all that vitamin D.
I don't know. I mean, that's a question that we've had together. Is like, what do you think? What things do you think will stay from this? I've joked that one of the things I hope stays is a mask. Because I actually really love wearing the mask going out, like, into wherever. It's like, normal,
is that Tammy Brown?
Normal me
I
is
don't
like,
think so.
look at Tammy Brown. Her hair's a mess. She didn't put makeup on again. She, which is like normal me. Now it's just like, oh, there's just some girl that with a mask on who didn't do her hair and wore her slippers into Target, and you can see her panty line in her yoga pants. Now it's just like some girl. It's not like, can you believe Pastor Matt's wife is so savage? Like, so I am keeping the mask. I hope what they keep is that they wash down carts everywhere.
I hope everyone keeps washing their hands all the time. That would literally be amazing. You know?
Is that the weirdest thing too? That's been the deal. Like watching celebrity. Here's what I hope. I hope that we continue to not give celebrities' voice so much weight. That's a real thing for me. Is I'm like, all of a sudden nobody cares what celebrities have to say, and I'm like, Thank you, God, for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
If nothing else, that COVID has wiped out how much weight a celebrity's voice carries versus
Right.
doctors, pastors,
Right.
you know, religion, like,
Celebrities are doing the same thing we're all doing. They're at home.
Yeah.
In quarantine.
Right.
With nicer houses. I mean, that's the
right.
end.
I know. But that is one thing. I hope that we treat each other better. I hope that we think better about when we're sick. You know, pre this happening, people would be like, "No, I feel fine to come into work," and it's like, "But you're getting all of us sick." You know, I hope that we're more mindful of others in this.
Yeah.
I hope there's some small semblance of like 6 feet apart.
Not with me, though. She doesn't mean that with me. I agree with you. I think that I think in all of life we learn lessons, and the wise people take the lessons that they've learned into their next season. So, you know, one of the things that Pastor Matt has said is when this all started, people were, we need God. You know, we need God. And now it's like, well, I got my stimulus check. I'm getting so I think I'm good.
It's sunny outside. The beach is open. I'm not going to get God in
online
this
church.
week. Yeah.
My hope is that for every person, no matter where you're at on your faith spectrum, you know, your journey with God, that the lessons you've learned about how much you need Him, that you are not lulled back into believing that when life resumes some sense of normalcy, that you don't. If this has taught me anything, if it's taught the world anything, it's how much we need God.
Absolutely.
And that without God, you think that nothing makes sense? Nothing makes sense apart from God. What has grounded me on days where I have felt that spiral and I felt like I can't get back, what has grounded me is to know that this is not the end. That this is not it. This is not the final chapter in my story.
Right.
That I am a sojourner. I'm passing through and I'm on my way to another place. And in that place, there is no COVID, there's no pandemic, there's no nasty, there's no celebrity, only God. And life is beautiful and perfect as we want it to be now, but as it can only be there.
Right.
And so my hope and my prayer is that whoever you are and wherever you're at with God, that through this pandemic and through this season, you have reattached yourself to what matters most, and you will continue on that journey to become the best follower of Jesus that you can be while you're here, because we all need God. He is the only answer to the problem. A vaccine may come out, and we pray that it does, and we'll have another problem.
Right.
We'll have another thing. There'll be another, and at the end of it all, God is the answer. And that may sound trite, but it is completely true.
No, I agree with all that. And I think, you know, one of the things I think for me that comes out better is that I have gotten healthier in a lot of ways in the last 6 weeks, which is why you and I joke that, like, I had no idea how much I was going to love this, because I go 110 all the time. People. You know, I haven't slept well in years. Like, I have some sleep issues. I'm sleeping the best I've slept when I'm not drawn by agenda and schedule and, like, trying to squeeze 29 hours into a 24-hour day every single day for 23 years.
Yeah.
You know? So for me, on the other side of this, I hope what comes out better in me is some healthy rhythms that I've got to create.
Right.
I haven't even done it intentionally.
Yeah.
They've been created for me, but I'm seeing the benefit of it. I've had a lot of time to think about friendships and relationships and the people that you are thinking you want to see and spend time with, and the things you want to do and spend time on versus the thing I was.
Yeah.
So some reprioritizing, you know. I hope for all of us, like you said, like I said, like people have gone, wait a second, everything's out of control. I need to know what's real about God.
Yep.
Is this real? Is it not? So many people have shared their faith.
Yep.
So many people have shared, okay, I might be nervous to share about God with you myself, but I will share about a place you can hear it, and have shared about Sandals Church.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not saying that because, like, I want to grow our business. I mean, that's where you hear God's word and God's truth. And if you're too scared to share it, let Matt share it on the weekends.
Yep.
Let us share it here.
Yep.
You know, but let's remind each other about this idea that we're passing through.
Yep.
You know, and that we we are created, and there's a creator. And what happens when all this is over? And people are thinking about that.
Yep.
And I hope when this is over, I hope even though, like you said, like people now are like busy on the weekends or getting less fervent and intentional about sharing about God, about sharing the truth, about inviting people to be a part of this. Like, this is such a great opportunity. You know, the stories are pouring in about I wasn't okay and I wanted to feel okay, and I found Sandals on YouTube, and I'm not trying to just plug us. I mean, this is a real thing.
Yep.
So we want to encourage everybody, if you're watching right now, to continue pursuing God above all else in this time.
Yep.
If you don't know what that looks like, you can go back and watch any series. There's so much at sandalschurch.tv for you to watch. I mean, it's been one of the biggest blessings that we didn't even know would happen, was that all of that content is available for anybody wanting to know about the vision. To the person who said, I'm questioning my marriage, go back and watch the Enneagram series called You, or Relational Remix. And think about how stress comes out in every single type. Right. How yours might be coming out.
Yep.
How you're experiencing your spouse is coming out.
You said this, and I think it's so true. You know, our vision is to be real with ourselves, God, and others. And I would say that a great thing to ask yourself every day is, God, today, how can I be real with myself? How can I be real with you? And how can I be real with others? The conversation you had with Matt, that was a real conversation that helped you go. When we're real, that's when we can heal. That's when we can grow. Authenticity is God's heart for all of us. And so through this thing, what I hope that all of us are learning is, what is God teaching me about me?
Right.
And what is he teaching me about being, not just so that I can know it now and forget it when I move back into my active life, but so that I come out of this a better person, because I took the time now to actually sit in, Melody, this is a thing for you, and I'm inviting you to work on it. I'm inviting you to become better because of it.
That makes me think about, I'm referring back to that question about, like, what if during this time it's making me question my spouse? I remember being young married and feeling that way a lot. And one time it occurred to me, well, what if Matt felt that way about me? What are the things about me that bug him that he stays silent about all the time and has grace for? I remember, feeling like that about, like, it's one thing if I'm like, I don't know if I want to, wait, you don't want to be with me? Like, you know? And so I think what you're saying is we're all invited into such a good opportunity right now to be real with ourselves. How am I being as a spouse? How am I being about grace? How am I being about love? How am I being, one of the conversations that I've had to go back and apologize to my daughters about is saying I have such a standard for them that's pretty hard to live up to. I'm a high 1 on the Enneagram, get it right. And I'm like, I am expecting you to have the wisdom, the maturity, the experience,
right,
the know-how of me at 46 that I didn't have at 22 and 23.
Right.
And so I've had to apologize for that. What are the things that you're expecting of others in their place that you didn't even have in their place?
Right. Yep.
And having grace for them. Also for myself, like having grace for myself on the days where I'm like, I wanted to be here today and I was here.
Yep.
But tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Adding that word, and I read that on a therapist that we both follow.
Yeah.
Adding the word yet. I'm not there yet. I didn't accomplish that yet. I'm not there. I didn't accomplish that. I won't ever be that person. But yet just reinforces that we're on a journey.
Right.
And we're all growing.
Right.
So.
And we didn't talk about this today, which we meant to, but like, how is all of this as women helping us cultivate wholeness, which was our goal this year? And I think, how is it not?
Right.
All of this refining, all of the hard parts, all of the struggle is a part of cultivating wholeness in who we are.
Yep.
I think God's rising to the surface things that we've ignored because we're busy and we're rushed and we're distracted. We can look at that. We can choose to see it as an obstacle or opportunity.
Yep.
I'm getting the time now to refine some things in me that I know I needed to or even wanted to, that I just didn't get to before. We all have that. Perspective is everything. Choosing to only look at what's bad or really relish in all the good, like I said, in the humanity and the kindness I'm seeing. You know, the opportunity for time and growth. You mentioned it, I felt it. As hard as it's been to have 5 almost adults in one house, confined to only each other, I also know that we all won't live in one house forever.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss those times.
Right.
You know, so as hard as it is, and I know moms and people with toddlers, little kids are like, oh my gosh. And it's so true. It's such a hard season that's so exhausting. It always won't be that way. So try to look for the joy instead of just be aware
Right.
of the hardship of it. You know, I know there's a lot of people, like I've encouraged you guys to try to go out and think of the people that aren't receiving all the love and the care maybe. And if you're one of those people, I even encourage you to think of those people in the way that you can. Text, send a card in the mail, drop something on a neighbor's door, you know, do those things. But I think for all of us, community in this time is key.
Yep.
I know at each of our campuses, our campus pastors and their wives, they're doing like anyone right now, if you are not in a group, join that group. I know there's more Cultivate groups. So you can go to
Cultivate.sc/community.
I knew I'd get that wrong.
We have so many links in our heads, guys.
You can get in a group right now, super easy. It could be your first time. You know, our youth kids have had a boom in groups of youth students getting in D groups, going like, how awkward is it, but also how safe is it to just show up in a computer where no one, it's really a safe opportunity to try group out and just say, here's who I am, and I'd like to know someone. I want to have a conversation with someone. I want to experience it. That's a lot of how we're knowing as a church how to care for people, is because people are letting their community group leaders know who let us know. Right. Community, just a conversation. Like you and I got on the phone yesterday, and it was just like, it wasn't anything life-changing, and yet it was so life-giving.
That's so good.
You know what
That's
I mean?
so
like,
good.
It didn't change our situation, but we were both able to go, I know. Just having someone to talk to, having gratitude. So we want to encourage you, seek out community.
Right. It's there.
Do the best you can. Even if it's not a group, text people you haven't texted in a while. Make a FaceTime date. But also, we've already said this, like, be a part of what's happening at Sandals Church Online. Again, I tend to be a person, and you can vouch for me on this, I try to never ask people to do something that I wouldn't do myself. I'm not just trying to push.
We have a funny story about that for the next time.
I don't even know what it is.
Black dress.
I don't.
Come back for the next time.
I don't want to. I'm not trying to sell Sandals Church on you. I believe in it with my entire life, and our life has proven that. Yep. And so join us for our weekend services. Figure out which one of the nights most can minister to you on the midweek sandalschurch.tv things. Like every Monday, we're highlighting a different part of Sandals Church. This last week, yesterday, we highlighted what our digital media team does and why it matters so much. But we've done how to share your faith, how to improve your marriage, what's for men, our Spanish services for everyone who knows someone who needs the good word and saving word of God in their language. There's so much. So figure out a way you guys can be a part of that. Yep. Share it with others.
And let me plug one more thing, because we were talking about spending time with God. Get the Sandals Church app, like download it today. And if you're like, I don't know how to read the Bible, I don't even know where to start, we've made that easy for you too.
Two different reading plans
right now. 60 Days in the Word, which I finished last week. Incredible. And now 30 Days with the Risen Jesus. The readings take you anywhere from 3 to 10-ish minutes a day. There's a couple of questions.
Which we all have right now.
Which we all have. You have that just on the toilet. Come on, we know it's true. So get into God's Word. This is the perfect time to strengthen and deepen your relationship with God.
And if you don't know how to download that app, direct message us at Cultivate Women. Yep. And someone, probably not Mel and I, because we can really do it.
Move.sc/app is also someone they're helping us. We don't know.
Thank you to the helpers back there. But we love you guys. Mel, before we go, will you just pray for all the women listening now? One of the things to preface, if you're tuning into this and anywhere past April of 2020, just know that right now we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of this conversation may make zero sense if you're watching it a year from now, but right now we're in the middle of a safer at home, stay at home quarantine. We can't meet as a church, we can't meet as groups, we can't meet in public. It's a really weird time. So just for a little perspective, if you're joining us later, but for this time, in this season, in this conversation, can you close us in prayer?
Absolutely, yeah. God, we are so grateful that even in the midst of a global pandemic, things that shake us and rattle us and cause us to feel so uneasy, thank you for being sturdy and being stable and being strong. Thank you for being constant and present and consistent. Thank you for always being available. Thank you for never giving up on us, as so many of us, God, have been shallow in our faith or in our commitment to follow you, as some of us have been so lethargic and spiritually apathetic or just not interested. Thank you that in the season where we've all been kind of shaken to our core and we've turned back to you, thank you that you've had open arms to receive us and embrace us and take us right where we're at. And God, for every person who's watching and listening today, God, you know every minute detail of their situation. You know what's making them anxious. You know what's making them afraid. You know, God, whether they're sick or whether they're well. God, you understand everything so thoroughly in a way that we never could. And today I just pray a covering of blessing over each and every person. I pray, God, that you would minister to them in such a unique, real, and tangible way, that they would know that they are loved and seen by God the Father, that they would know and be reminded that you care about them, that you created them for a purpose, and that you are with them. In the very same way, God, that the disciples were on the boat in the middle of the storm and so afraid, and you came right to them. The Bible says immediately you stretched out your hand to Peter when he began to fall. God, you are immediately available to us to catch us when we fall, when our fear grabs a hold of us, when we feel most afraid. You're immediately there, and we are so thankful for your presence. It is a gift to us in the midst of this. And so, God, I pray that we would remember what a beautiful gift we have in you, that we would remember that you are the source of all truth, and that we would stay so firmly planted and so deeply connected to who you are. God, we love you. Help us to be both wise and kind. Help us to pursue wholeness during this season. And God, help us at the end of the day to remember that everything matters in this life is about you and pointing people to you. So continue, God, to draw people to yourself. And if you would use us to draw people to you, we would be so humble and so grateful. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We miss you. We cannot wait to gather together again with you. But until then, our hearts are with you and we love you.
We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.